Welcome, everyone. You're here for a talk on light pollution by Norb Vance. And Norb's been a scientific instrumentation specialist for the Physics and Astronomy Department at EMU. He's the director of the Scherzer Observatory. You're going to see some cool pictures of that shortly. He teaches a lot of different courses on observational astronomy. And I've known Norb for years, and I can say he's the most dedicated astronomy educator I've ever met. So I think that you'll enjoy. We are going to be looking at the chat. So folks, please go ahead and ask your questions via chat. We'll get to them at the end. So without further ado, here's Norb.
Thank you, Brian. I think I owe you a steak dinner for that intro. But I always seem to be dragged into this particular talk. Everybody else gets to do the cool things, like Brian in his use of the observation telescope last night and again tonight. You do have to tune in for Brian's wonderful presentation on the live feed in the sky from New Mexico, even though he's here in Southeast Michigan. But he has the advantage of using a telescope in very dark skies, whereas our observatory, which you'll see here momentarily, is in a bright city environment, and it's quite a difference. So we're going to address that issue and the problems we're facing with lighting that affects not only astronomy, but we ourselves. It's surprising how much we take for granted about how much light pervades our nighttime environment. And as mentioned from EMU in Ypsilanti, Michigan, the Scherzer Observatory, it was built many decades ago. It suffered a fire in 1989, which modernized all the equipment as a result. But you can imagine 100 years ago, Ypsilanti was probably out in the fringe of Southeast Michigan, Detroit, very, very dark skies. But today, that's not the case. Nonetheless, we still operate a decent observatory, a nice size refractor telescope sitting under our dome on campus. And we even have some historic instruments, a brass refractor, which dates back to 1878. So you can imagine students a century ago using this telescope under Milky Way skies, but that's not the case. Personally, I grew up in Allen Park, Michigan. I remember a friend moving way, way out to a place called Belleville in 1970, and you could see the Milky Way from Belleville, Michigan, outside of Detroit, halfway between Ann Arbor and Detroit, in 1970. That's 50 years ago. Not the case today. It's pretty well vanished. And so the skies have suffered, but we still manage to do some astronomy. As you can see, we have a fairly nice fleet of telescopes for students to use up on our roof deck. And with these instruments, are able to study and understand the sky quite well. We also recently renovated our science complex building. We have a spherical planetarium on campus, pretty cool. So if the weather is uncooperative, we can actually show folks the night sky using this computer-generated imaging system within the sphere that we call, sitting in an atrium. And we also recently renovated our science building Strong Hall, Physics and Astronomy. If there's any EMU alums out there, you may remember Strong Hall as being not so user-friendly. Today, it's gorgeous. But with COVID, of course, we've had to social distance and adjust everything accordingly. But hopefully, we'll get back to business here where people can enjoy this beautiful new building. This is the new Strong Hall, and it is the headquarters of our Physics and Astronomy department. And some of the interior motifs are very much astronomy related, beautiful images of the Andromeda Galaxy. So we're on campus. We've got this beautiful facility. We've got a shop, which Brian mentioned. I'm an instrument tech. I oversee our shop with the laser cutters, 3D printers, and CNC machines. And here I can effect repairs on telescopes that we use at the observatory and our other location, which you'll see in a moment. So there is the 100-plus-year-old building, Scherzer Hall, and it's lovely observatories, plural. We have a couple of them up there. And once in a while, we get this kind of an event happen. I'm sure many of you have probably wondered what the aurora borealis looks like. If you're going to wait around in Southeast Michigan for bright night, a bright aurora display, you're going to be a while. Probably once every 5 to 10 years, you get an aurora of this scale. Go up in northern Michigan, you see it quite frequently. But here on campus, we are scourged with all the new lights that they've put in for supposedly security reasons with cameras and everything. They need lighting for that. So unfortunately, the observatory sits in the heart of all of these lights, but at least we're 100 feet above them, sitting atop a building. You can see the observatory dome with its observing deck, not far north of the famous Ypsilanti Water Tower, so you can find us located there. And at night, it takes on this sort of scene. So we've got literally 100 lights surrounding the observatory and the deck, and have to peer through that up above. And I know of some observatories that are in worse situations closer to the core of Detroit, but at least we can do some decent astronomy. But you can see that lighting is an issue for us from our locale, but we manage. And if you look at the various astronomy clubs that are hosting this particular event, the Great Lakes Area Astronomy Clubs Association, the observatory for Scherzer is down here in the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti complex, right more or less in the thick of the Southeast Michigan light dome that is generated by literally 1 million plus people within a few dozen miles of this facility. But we have a second observing site out near Lapeer, Michigan at our biology reserve. And as you can see above, many more stars visible where we can take students and enjoy a weekend or two of astronomy underneath the skies of rural Michigan up in the Thumb area. So this is where you have to go to see many, many stars compared to those we find on campus or in suburban Detroit. As the students go up, they're often marveling at the sheer number of stars they can see. And I've known many people have almost been frightened by the experience of seeing so many stars, not knowing that the skies should be as dark as ink and stars should pop out all over. But it's a problem. And you can see that light pollution pervades many, many cities. This International Space Station view is interesting in that you can see the light domes, the light pollution of places like St. Louis, Chicago, one of the most light polluted cities in the country. Detroit sitting out there on the horizon right here. St. Paul, Minneapolis, and even the Aurora Borealis and the light dome, the so-called air glow that shows up in this view of the Earth from above. So pretty amazing view. And you're going to see a video here in a moment that will show this very scene as the space station flies over, the actual footage from which this image was taken. And you can look for Detroit and look for the light situation that we have here in Michigan, for example. Northern Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, you'll fly right over Detroit. So pay attention to that part when we show you this little brief video. And when you look at city views like that, you have to ask, where does all that electricity come from? And I can assure you it is not the wall. I actually had somebody say that to me once. Where's electricity coming from? The wall. No, it goes a little bit further than that. It's obviously power plants. Some of them nuclear, some of them wind, but still natural gas is another, but still primarily coal. You still burn a lot of coal to generate electricity, which is a very nasty pollutant. And you'll hear terms like clean coal. No such beast. It's nasty stuff, and yet we rely on it so heavily. And it is one of those non-renewable resources that will be used up at some point. And there's a lot of technical jargon that goes along with describing light pollution and energy use. I've listed a few of them here, which deals with how energy is generated and burning of fossil fuels, the environmental issues that result from it, and the fact that the United States is not alone in this issue. This problem is worldwide, and how we use our natural resources and generate electricity is a very important subject. And so we should be very careful and not squander our resources, especially when we're lighting our cities at night. And I go around and I just shake my head in amazement at how much we waste when we could be doing such a much better job at taking care of our environment in terms of how much energy we use for lighting. And here you see a chart that describes what are called lumens. This is a term that people aren't too familiar with. We've been so indoctrinated to go out and buy a light bulb, thinking of the incandescent measure 40 watt, 60 watt, 100 watt. If you want a real bright lamp, you want a 150 watt incandescent bulb. Well, with the advent of LEDs, light emitting diodes, which generate blue light, much stronger, brighter light for less power consumption, the term lumens has to be more or less used. And so look at the comparisons that I have on this diagram. If you want a low lit room, use a 6 to 9 watt LED light that generates about 400 to 500 lumens. So that's a low light level bulb. If you want a real bright light, you're getting up above 1,000 lumens, all the way up to 2,600 lumens for the equivalent of what we used to use for these big bright light bulbs that incandescent would generate. So look at the lumens on any of the bulbs you use, and look how little energy you use in generating that light. Here's where the problem is. We could still save billions of dollars and use far less energy if we use less wattage. We don't need this tremendous amount of light. In fact, it's blindingly bright. Manufacturers will tell you, don't even look at the light that's generating this many lumens because it will hurt your eyes. And it doesn't take all that much power to do so. So the moral of the story is here, use less wattage. Don't go out and buy the very brightest bulb you can because they're very powerful. They'll do more than necessary for the job. And save some money. That's the key. Save some money. Because our skies in just the past 5 years, I'll just use 5 years as a random survey. In just 5 years' time, our skies have brightened tremendously because of the switch over to LED lights, which penetrate much deeper into the sky, take away the night glow, which is necessary. Nighttime is a necessary function of the environment because it affects wildlife, it affects plant growth, it affects us. So this is a typical suburban sky view these days, and I'm saying this is a generous view of it because I see far more stars in this image than I do in reality these days, just since the advent of the LED lights. Whereas you go up to the Upper Peninsula, I took both of these images, the one on the right, up in northern Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula. You compare that to southeast Michigan, this picture on the left from Westland, and you can see a marked difference between the two skies. Most of humanity is under the kind of sky you see on the left as opposed to the ones on the right. So let's ask the question, where do you live? Which sky suits your particular measure? And there are ways of measuring these things. Something called the Bortle rating tells you how many lights you have in your sky, how much light pollution you're facing. Most of us are probably sitting in a 5 to 7 kind of sky. Some of us are in the 9s, but very few people are living out there what we call a Bortle rating of 1 to 3, where the skies are very, very dark. And astronomers actually measure this darkness. There are ways of measuring the light levels in your particular sky. And I've got them listed here. I'll just quickly flash through them because I don't want to use up all our time. But there are places you can go to get the Bortle timescale. And one of the best places, sources, is darksky.org, the International Dark Sky Association, which is sort of a caretaker, if you will, in promoting dark sky and energy savings. And the IDA has recently joined with the Audubon Society to help preserve the dark skies for birds, for example. Is another way we can unfortunately affect nature, is that birds are dazzled by the lights, and in fact so much in terms of migratory birds that the city of Toronto and Canada in general has created the Fatal Light Awareness Program. They were finding that millions, literally millions of migratory birds were dying by crashing into brilliantly lit buildings. So they've taken on the task of reducing the amount of light emanating from buildings at night so the migratory birds don't collide into them. Here's an example of a problem. The World Trade Center tribute lights were aimed up in the sky for long periods of time, and they were finding that birds were getting trapped in the lights, so to speak. They were dazzled by the lights. And you can see literally thousands of birds were becoming exhausted by flapping around these lights until they literally dropped dead to the ground. So they learned that they had to turn the lights off to prevent this incident from happening. So the FLAP, or Fatal Lights Awareness Program, is just one aspect of many parts of light pollution. that we sort of take for granted and don't realize is going on. Here's another neat source. Here in Southeast Michigan, Dr. Salioi of the University of Michigan Astronomy Department helped put together a program that involves a lot of educators and scientists and bird watchers, nature lovers, you name it, all part of this Michigan Dark Skies. If you Google Michigan Dark Skies, you can find out all kinds of information about the problem, how to solve it, the local regulations and actions that have been taken around various municipalities here in Southeast Michigan, places to go to observe the night sky, things about the aurora and education. So it's a wonderful resource. So Google Michigan Dark Skies to find out more about what we're doing in our neck of the woods for light pollution. It's a good resource. And we've been fighting this battle, if you will, for many years. Here's the November 2008 issue of National Geographic, which you can see is the end of night, why we need darkness. So I consulted on this article many years ago, and we've been trying to make people aware of the issue for some time. So the word is getting out that people are aware that this can be a problem. This is another neat video for educators out there. This is one that you can show that won some, or at least got some Emmy nods for its coverage of this issue. It's been out for a while, but still an excellent resource. So let's mosey on here and look at what we can do about this and where the problems lie. Here we see NASA images of the Earth at night. You can see clearly that most of the people in the US live either on the coasts or east of the Mississippi. And where would you have to go to find dark skies? Well, the answer is obviously the West Coast, or somewhere in the Western US to get to the darkest skies. In Europe and Africa and Asia, you can see where most of the people live. The Sahara Desert obviously stands out as very dark, whereas Europe itself, especially the coastlines, are brightly lit. People immediately are drawn to the fact that Egypt's population, all 9 million people in Egypt, are strung right along. Did I say 9 million? It should be 94 million people. 94 million people strung along the Nile River. And here they are. This is Egypt from space. So the lights tell you where people live. And if you want to get into dark skies, you got to go where they're not. For example, the outback of Australia, various places of the Chinese deserts, very few people, and of course the oceans. Japan is one giant neon sign from one end to the other. So pretty amazing. I'm going to go back here. One real quick note. You can see my cursor. Look at North Korea compared to South Korea. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. So pretty stunning to see where people have money and where people don't in terms of geographic effect of lighting. So let's ask some questions and think about what we do when it comes to lighting. You wouldn't purposely run tap water down a drain all night. So that begs the question, why do we do this with lights? Why do we just needlessly throw this light all over the place into the sky, willy-nilly, don't consider what we're doing? Are we intruding on our neighbors? Are we adding to the light pollution of the night? What are we doing about the problem ourselves? Here's a typical suburban Detroit sky scene. And the general statement is you should not be able to see the clouds at night. Any rural dark sky site, the clouds should not be lit up to glow like you see them here. And the reason for that are just thousands and thousands of unaccounted for lights that are needlessly glowing at night. The daytime scene, these so-called acorn lights, look real pretty. At night, they're glare menaces. You got to stare into these bright lights. So let's go for a little drive. We'll hop in our sports car and look out at some particular lights and see what we're coming up against. I pick on Ypsilanti because EMU is located there. And you can see literally dozens and dozens of these acorn lights, these supposedly pretty lights that are actually glare prone. They're very, very poor for doing the job they're designed to do. And unfortunately, a lot of communities purchase these things to mark their downtowns to supposedly make them look pretty, but the actual result is this glare and clutter that you see. We can do such a better job at lighting our towns and our roadways. Same is true along Ford Road in Canton. A lot of the lights are of the acorn glare prone variety, which are promoted as pedestrian friendly, which they're not. And you got to think about what you're lighting. In the case of Ford Road, people aren't using these as pedestrian walkways. They're using them for driving. And so for drivers, these are very poorly designed lights. But even little towns, you go way up to Roscommon, for example, they have what are essentially fire sticks, these dumb lights, as I call them, because they really are. In this day and age, we should know better. These are not the kind of lights we should be using. And then how many of you have driven past parking lot after parking lot and seen this? I mean, this is insanity. I call this lighting insanity. There are 22 towers with 4 lights per on top, plus 2 more at mid poles, all LED lit. And notice there aren't any cars in the lot. Now, why is this lit up at night? And the sky glow from just this one parking lot adds to the thousands of fast food places, gas stations, shopping centers. The list goes on and on. It's insane how much light we dump into the environment. So yeah, this is bad for the environment, bad for our eyes, and it's using far more energy than we really should be. A few other examples. If you see Los Angeles from the mountains above, just countless thousands of lights that we should not be seeing from above. So the answer to that is to use better fixtures, better lighting, ones that shield the light, that prevent it from going up. Look at Japan. Japan's almost totally dependent on power and resources from outside. So there are places where subdued lighting has taken place. Here, for example, in Arizona, statewide laws that govern how lighting is used. I was actually thrilled when I visited Arizona last summer and saw this flag lit up from above. How often do you see that? But Arizona, they have this. So it's absolutely wonderful to see an entire state applying light laws to harness all that energy and bring it to the ground rather than the sky. One place I encourage people to go is Lowell Observatory. What a wonderful place. They've gone so far as to build these public facilities for observing the night sky. And they're on Mars Hill, just above the city of Flagstaff, and the skies are plenty dark. They just recently installed a plane wave telescope built here in Adrian, Michigan. So pretty amazing that you can see skies like this just outside Flagstaff, Arizona. So this is what state laws and state regulations can do to help curb light pollution, to control the waste of energy. But it's that kind of efforts that's needed to tell people, look, this is a problem and we have to address it. So go to Arizona and you'll see skies like this routinely. That's the nature of the state. Same with New Mexico, where Bryan's telescope is located, and so forth. Next door, we have Las Vegas, Nevada. This is insanity, more lighting insanity. So bad lighting causes all of these problems: glare, confusion, clutter, light trespass, energy waste. So we're going to wrap up a description of bad lights versus good lights, and let's play bad light, good light. We're going to zip through this. I can't hear you responding, so I'm going to zip through them pretty quickly. And this is pretty obviously a bad light. Anything that shows the luminaire from a distance is bad. We've got acorn style lamps. These are bad. Good or bad? Well, obviously it's good. The light is shielded. It's up inside a cap and aims only at the ground. So any light that aims towards the ground is a good one. These are good lights, but they're also ugly. And how about these? Well, again, they're shielded and aimed down at the ground. So you betcha, these are good lights. And I love asking folks, especially my students, this light, they look at it, it looks like it has a shield, but you can see the bulb. And then you have to ask yourself, why is it there? It's lighting up the entrance of the subdivision. I can't even see the entrance of the road. The glare is so bad at night. So people have to think about what they're doing with their lights. Here we have an example of way too many lights. I mean, just look at the number of lights in this image. Just not that many. You don't need dozens and dozens of lights. A few good, well-placed lights, fully shielded, and you'll do the job. That's a bad light right there. These are good lights, but unfortunately, look, there's nobody on the field. Turn them off. If you're not using them, turn them off. So this company specializes in shielded lights for athletic fields, but if there's nobody in the field, with LEDs, you can shut them off relatively quickly. Church steeples, flags, anything where you're aiming a light in the sky, bad news. Put shielding on them, and you're doing a good job for the environment, for you. And there are places you can go to get lights. I recommend starrynightlights.com, where they sell all kinds of varieties of lights, from decor lights to utility lights that aim down. How about this one? Let's think about this one. If you see building with pack lights, one, it's bad. Two, somebody didn't do their homework. So please help us. We need your help. Think about what we're doing. So, Brian, with a nod of your head, do we have time here to run this 6-minute video?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's watch this a wonderful little presentation we show at our EMU planetarium on the full dome. It is available on our site if you want to check it out for you educators and for parents who are homeschooling. This is a great short 6-minute video, and we're going to share this with you now, let you take in Losing the Dark. Let's enjoy this, and then we'll come back. Here we go.
Hey Norb, we're not getting any audio on that video. I don't know if there
You were
is a,
not?
no, I don't know if there's anything you can do about that.
No.
Sharing the sound? I don't know anything else.
Oh, okay.
Can you sing with it? Can you hum the tunes?
No. Oh, I'm sorry that should I terminate?
Well, it's beautiful audio. It's beautiful video. It's just, yeah, we're not seeing the audio. People are enjoying it, but it's
Oh,
there's no audio to it.
well, there is an access. They can access it. I'll narrate along. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is what the night sky would normally look like if you remove the light pollution. So there's the Milky Way. Thank you for pointing this out, Brian. I've shown this and watched it enough that I can narrate along with it. We're about 2/3 of the way through, so we're looking at the Milky Way, and most people have not seen the Milky Way, certainly not like that. So astronomers need this this dark sky for their work, but we need it for our health and well-being. So imagine stars, light traveling thousands of miles and then getting washed out the last instant. So half a ton of coal is needed to run a simple light bulb. So if you multiply that times all the lights up there, the cost of energy is huge. Absolutely huge. You look at scenes of cities. Here are some simple things we can do to preserve dark skies. You can replace light fixtures with fully shielded ones, such as you see here. So these are full cutoff lights, and put on them lights only where you need them rather than willy-nilly all over like the parking lots. And just turn them off if you don't use them at night. Believe it or not, darkness is not as nasty as people portray it to be. So we can either waste resources and send light to the sky, or be more conservative about it. Use it more responsibly. So you can see that it's an issue.
If you tell me the name of the video, do you think the video is viewable on YouTube somewhere?
It is. It's called Losing the Dark. And there is a link to it. Actually, I think you can click on it from our webpage, our GLAAC webpage for this particular show. I apologize for the audio not reaching you, but
no, that's okay. And Sammer does he points to the 3 dots under more that we probably could have shared the
oh, okay,
computer sound, but
oh well.
Well, we're no, we've gotten to the main part of it, and
yeah, that's the gist. This was our last little feature. So again, we apologize for the audio glitch, but you can find this out on the web. It's only 6 minutes long. It's great. I finished by noting that basically what the video said was practice good lighting around your house. Use motion detectors and shielded lights. Don't disturb your neighbors. They don't necessarily like your lighting. Tell your local governments no acorn lights, save tax dollars because you pay for it, and then conserve energy because most of us are missing out on skies like this. Most of humanity grew up and evolved under skies like this, but in just a few decades, we've pretty much wiped it out through careless lighting practices. So do your part, help out, feel good about it. If you want to buy a telescope, I just threw this out here for suggestions because in past presentations, when we did this under the tent while meeting at our outdoor session, I would invariably give away some lucky kid would get a first scope telescope from me. Unfortunately, we don't have that here for us today, but notice it's only $55 for a really decent little beginner telescope. If you notch it up a bit, this 4.5-inch telescope for kids is a great investment. They'll use it for years. And if you yourself, the big kids among us, want something decent to start out with for $430, you get yourself a nice size 8-inch telescope to look and enjoy at the night sky. So these are just some basic recommendations I usually get after doing this presentation in the tent. So I'm going to send this off with this particular page. Tell you to enjoy the night. Brian, why don't you mention something about your observation tonight? Because it's worth noting when you do your observations.
Yeah, well, I'm on at 10 o'clock, so you can find me, Brian, Autumn, and I got my remote control New Mexico scope, so we'll be able to show the live views of all the different celestial objects because it's very dark out there.
Yeah, the only light pollution you'll be facing is that bright moon that we'll have.
The moon is pretty nasty tonight, but yeah, we've got
not much we can do about that. But
no,
the city lights, yes.
Norb, we've got several good questions.
Oh, okay.
Jim asks, What filter do you recommend for blocking LED blue light? The glare is worse than sodium. Night driving, especially when raining, is made more dangerous.
The short answer, there's not much you can do. The white light is indicative of broad spectrum lighting. So it used to be that you could use particular filters to block the light from orange sodium lights or various very narrow spectrum, they're called lights. But LED lights go across the spectrum. So it's really not a particularly good way of filtering any of that light because it's so broad spectrum. So you can try various filters, the so-called O3 filters or LP, light pollution reduction filters, LPRs. They work, but against white light, you're stuck in the mud.
Okay. Dave asks, in the case of down fixtures that face down, are there guidelines for the max lumens on the lit surface? Because thinking of how to minimize the amount of light reflected back up into the sky, depending on the type of surface.
Well, that's a good question too. One, there are a number of regulatory rules for a number of lumens at the edge of property lines and so forth, but they're poorly enforced. Another issue I'm seeing is that oftentimes when these LED lights are installed, they're being run at full power. And they don't really need to run them at full power. They could save thousands and thousands in cash and money to run them at a lower rate and not only save money, but save energy and not have to burn them as hot or as bright and still accomplish the task of lighting an area. And this is true of shielded lighting too. I mean, you don't have to crank all the shielded ones up because they're putting the light on the surface you need them on.
Great. Okay.
So to ensure that we're answering that one, make sure that the installers know that they don't have to crank them up to full power.
Yes. We were all hoping when LEDs came in that they would just kind of keep the same power and we would be all better off.
Or less. That was the key, is to use less than 1/10 the power.
Right.
Put out the same amount of light that an incandescent light or some low sodium light with a broader spectrum. And as indicated, they penetrate deeper into the night because they are a broader spectrum light. And as mentioned, difficult to filter as a result.
Jim asks, he notes that Mars Hill, which you talked about, is more like a Flagstaff city park, and it's sited next to the edge of the city limits. Similar in relation to the city as Leslie Park is here in Ann Arbor's north side.
Yeah. Once you get out of the core downtown, then you get a dramatic increase in the number of stars you can see and so forth. I live outside of Ann Arbor, outside Dexter. And we can see a Milky Way there, but it's only a matter of time as they continue. I see a continuous erosion of lights because of the cheap cost of operating LED lights and the proliferation of them. So we have to do a better job at monitoring how they're being used. I see party stores, liquor store. They've got, they may have a half dozen to a dozen of these brilliant white pack lights on the side of the building. That's lighting insanity. I call it lighting insanity, or in-your-face lighting. Anytime you can see a luminaire, that's in-your-face lighting. That's a bad light.
Yeah.
Tell the owners, aim them down. Be friendly to your neighbors.
I worked with Pittsfield Township to help get them a lighting ordinance, and they were pretty good on that. But then the police station has these nasty pack lights along the walls.
Yeah, ridiculous, isn't it? And I want to, since you mentioned that again, look at that, Google that Michigan dark skies, because they have a lot of ordinances listed there. And there's some good ones for Scioto Township and so forth that have some pretty good regulations and ordinances about lighting that are friendly to the people. I mean, they're not so restrictive that you're not allowed to outdoor light, but they at least tell you how to do it correctly. And there are some resources there from the International Dark Sky Association, places to go to see and appreciate a dark sky. So Google Michigan dark skies and see what the folks advertise on that particular page, because it's some really good stuff, really good information.
Well, that completed the questions that were typed in, but you partially answered the question I had, was where can we go?
Well, there are more of these so-called dark sky sights. It's sort of strange. We have to go places far from the cities to see these places. They're designated parks. Among the nearest to southeast Michigan, of course, is Lake Hudson, near outside of Hudson, Michigan, south of Jackson. Up in the Thumb, Port Crescent State Park, and further out in northern Michigan, of course, is the Headlands Dark Sky Park, which I could go on and on about all the different places it can go and show maps of that. But those are the kind of places you'll see in that Michigan Dark Skies listing. So those are listed there among the places to go.
Michigan Dark Skies. Put that in the chat. Well, I think we've had a wonderful talk on this subject. It's more important than people think. We've had some enlightened folks take part here. And Norb, thank you so much for making this fun and educational. And I want to tell everybody that we have a survey, a customer satisfaction survey that you can fill out. Just go to the Astronomy at the Beach website. At the top right, there's Take the Survey. We encourage you to do that. And be sure to take part in as many other sessions as you can tonight. And we hope to see you in the flesh a year from now as we get back out on Astronomy at the Beach in person with our big telescopes. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Norb.
You're welcome, Brian. Thank you. And I might add, they can go to the webpage for this particular session to get that audio for the Losing the Dark video.
Excellent. They can view it there, and they'll hear it. Good.
Yes. Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, we got people. People really enjoyed that, and they wanted to hear the sound. But that they'll be able to do that.
And it's only 6 minutes.
Yep. And Tina had asked the question just before we log off here, because we got to let the next group start. What's the date of next year? We do not know the date of next year for Astronomy at the Beach. We know it's going to be in September. We know it's going to likely have a little bit of a moon or a big moon, not sure. So just stay tuned.
Okay.
All right. I have stopped the